Because there's so much randomness in life, you really increase your odds of success by kind of having a lot of lottery tickets. So I think a big thing with, fear of rejection, putting yourself out there, is doing it a lot and just kind of getting used to the process, and then it doesn't hurt as bad. I think with Everybody Lies, I realized this was my big career shot. I felt like this is the best idea I'm gonna have in my life. And I still feel that way. Don't trust your gut. In my opinion, it doesn't come close to Everybody Lies in innovativeness.
You cannot say that, Seth. I mean, people said it's as good as your first book.
Okay,
I'll show you actually the comments that people wrote. But anyway, second book, I wanted to say the second book.
I have no filter. I should have called my first book Everybody Lies Except Me, because I just can't help saying what's actually on my mind. So in my head, I thank the readers for their comments. In my mind, it wasn't in the same league as Everybody Lies. And when I was writing Everybody Lies, this is my big life project. I said in the end, it was my magnum opus. It was gonna be my big statement about data and humanity and life. And I was so ahead of the curve, I felt, because I was studying Google searches and very, very few people were. It was this revolutionary tool. And so I'm just I want to do this right. And I fought through all my demons, my fear of asking people, and my fear of putting my work out in the world. And, I just I need to fight through everything and just give it my best shot. And I'm happy that I feel like I did do that, so.
Yeah, I'm curious how long it took for you to finish the manuscript from the start, because when you think that this book is so important in your career, it's very easy to think that I should do this perfectly. And what happens to me very often is I revise it over and over and over and over, and I never send it out. I'm curious if that ever happened to you, or how you kind of tame that desire to be perfect.
That was another thing where I had to tame my demons, because the first big writing project of my life was undergrad. I tried to write a philosophy thesis, and exactly what you're saying happened to me. I got in my head, I said, I kept on reading more and more, and I wanted to write this grand treatise on philosophy, and I ended up quitting. I didn't write the thesis, and it was a mistake, because I had enough to write a perfectly fine thesis, and I could have graduated with honors and written something kind of summarizing some of my thoughts after 4 years studying philosophy, and I didn't do it. And so I knew I was fighting my demons again, and there was a point during Everybody Lies where I wanted to quit. I just stopped working on it. I said, this is just not right. It's not coming across as I want it to come across. And there was a part of me, I had this inner voice that just kept saying, just don't sabotage yourself. And for me, it's a big internal struggle. I have a voice inside of me. I don't know if you've ever read the book, The War of Art, by Steve Pressfield. Yeah.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. He talks about this concept.
I worship that book.
Yeah. He talks about this concept of resistance. I feel that so much. There's a part of me, this inner, person that's sabotaging yourself and telling you all the reasons what you're doing is not right. And I just maybe because I'd read The War of Art, and I just knew, just fight through it. You got to get this done. You got to get it out there. Can't be too much of a perfectionist, and just put it out there and see what happens. And then it was great. Everything exceeded my wildest expectations, the reception. So
as you said, you have several jobs at the same time right now. How do you balance or manage all of that at the same time? I want to know a little bit more about that. For example, I am a statistician, but I want to be a little bit a better writer for general audience. I'm working on my second book. It doesn't come along for some reason. I think a part of it is because I cannot prioritize my writing routine over my full-time job, and I simply feel like I don't have enough time to focus on writing. How do you balance between being a good data scientist and being a good writer who writes for general audience, not academic audience in DS field?
It's hard. Minds are not great at multitasking. And to be honest, I think I'd be a better writer if I was only writing. I do this consulting, and 80% of my brain is thinking about that project. Then I'm just okay, let me write about happiness on the side. And I think my work on happiness would be a lot better if I was just spending a month on happiness. But you have to make trade-offs, and For me, definitely living in New York City, it's an expensive city. Even if you have success, the writer life is not that lucrative. So, consulting and speaking and other things do kind of supplement your income. But there is definitely a trade-off. And maybe putting all your time into writing would make you a better writer, but are you willing to make the financial sacrifice to get there? Yeah, you're saying no, absolutely not. So I think part of it is just acknowledging that you're not trying to be a perfect writer. You're not trying to write, it kind of goes to the same thing you talked about, perfectionism. You have to be okay with being as good a writer as you can be while keeping a full-time job and also being knee-deep in data science and having meetings a lot of the day. And you might not reach quite the level that you could if you devote yourself fully to it. Although, definitely a lot of writers have had full-time jobs. Franz Kafka was like a bureaucrat, some safety insurance job his entire life. So yeah, I guess some people do find a way to reach that extreme high level while doing other things. For me, I think my writing has definitely suffered with my outside activities.
But I bet you enjoyed the consulting part of your career too, to some extent. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a type of person who finds a lot of things interesting, so
that was another question that I definitely wanted to ask you. You look like a very curious person all the time, and what is really interesting is, yeah, people can be curious, but you also really search for the answer, and you leverage all the skills that you have, and you go shop the academic journal books, and you do data analysis yourself, and you make conclusion. I wanted to ask, what fuels your curiosity? Were you a curious kid from the beginning to start with, or did you cultivate that, or what is the secret there?
It's going to be a strange answer, but I think there's some truth to it. I'm a little socially clueless, and that allows me to just go wherever my curiosity takes me, whereas I think a lot of people are so concerned with what other people think. So you look at a book like Everybody Lies, 34 years old, I don't really have a real job. All my friends have gotten rich in tech already. And I'm just spending my days analyzing data from porn sites. There's a section of Everybody Lies where I reached out to Pornhub and they gave me their data, and I'm just reading, I'm analyzing what people search for on porn. Now, this is maybe an odd use of one's time, but I think there's a part of me that's just clueless that if I'm interested in something, it's very hard to stop myself from going there. Best sense of this term, clueless about me as I go through life, where I'm just like, oh, that's interesting, I'll do it. Whereas I think a lot of people do more due diligence of whether that's a wise use of one's time, but that allows me to just follow my curiosity, and then it comes across where people read the book, they're like, wow, Seth is very interested, and it's very interesting, all these things that he's so interested in.
How much do you read, and what do you read?
Right now I'm reading this book about cancer. I just started it because I have an idea for my next book, which is going to be, I'd be curious what you think about this topic. So I talked in my book that I had struggled for 10 years with depression. So I'm thinking of writing a book, A Data Scientist versus His Depression, where I just read everything I can on the topic of depression to help other people who've been through what I've been through and be like, this is the best evidence on the topic. Kind of similar to things I do in Don't Trust Your Gut, where I'm reading all the studies and being like, this is a good study, this is not a good study, and then this is what we really know, both to help myself because I haven't fully passed through my depression, but also to help other people. But that's why I started reading this cancer book, because I'm like, oh, that's a book that's just all about one disease, and how does he do that? So that's kind of given me the idea. Half of my reading is on topics that might be useful for my own writing. So, an academic paper, if I'm going to write about depression, a book about depression. And then half of my reading is picking up writing tips, which is really, really important. So kind of copying, the line, good artists copy, great artists steal. Reading a lot of great writing and being like, why does this work? And then there are definitely writers where I'm going to read anything they write. So Steven Pinker, he could write about his shoes or something, and I'm going to be like,
anything.
Yeah.
With this thickness, probably.
Yeah, I'm going to read the whole book. And Malcolm Gladwell, I read his books. I don't put him in the same league as far as the academic rigor, but certainly he's a very compelling writer. So kind of thinking through why do people enjoy his book so much. When I was writing Everybody Lies, I read Freakonomics over and over again because, like, what is he doing? Why do people like that so much?
This is your new book that was published in October 2022 in Korea, and people wrote a lot about your books, the short reviews, the long reviews.
Wow, that makes me feel good because in my head, I really didn't.
But thinking about this book was published in October 2022. There were so many reviews already there, and people said they enjoyed your book as much as they enjoyed your first book, and I bet that they're waiting for your third book. So it's really good to hear that you started working on it. So I'll be waiting for your third book
I'd love to be on the show again, and you should definitely reach out. Don't self-reject. Don't pre-reject yourself.
Oh. Okay.
This could be like a regular thing. I write a book and I'm on the Sunny show.
I want to conclude this interview by asking like 3 or 4 lightning round questions. You talked about book a little bit, but any book you revisit regularly or change your thoughts and perspective significantly?
The War of Art. I come back to that book so much.
Yeah.
Steve Pressfield. Yeah.
Any skill set you think that makes a great data scientist?
Creativity, which is not what people think of. People don't think of data science as involving creativity, but I think it's a very creative process.
I really want to be a creative person, but I don't think myself as a creative person. How do you cultivate that?
Well, that is really interesting. So I have an interesting story about that, getting away from the lightning answers. My girlfriend, when we met, said that she was very insecure. I think I could say this. She said she didn't think she was a creative person. And she's like, you're the creative one, I'm not the creative one. And then seeing me in my process, she's like, oh, maybe anybody can be creative because what you do doesn't seem that difficult. You basically just come up with a lot of ideas and throw them against the wall and find the one that works. So that was very interesting, that I think a lot of people have misperceptions around creativity or lack of creativity, and that, as Steve Jobs said, creativity is just connecting things. I think creativity requires being a little weird. That's something I've never struggled with.
Anything that you are learning right now or planning to learn in the near future?
The depression stuff, if I go down that road, I'm thinking of reading all the academic papers and all the books. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it might be too depressing a topic, so it may be like I'm trying to not lean in maybe to that type of topic, so I might go a different direction. I'm not sure yet.
Maybe you're be the first person who writes about depression, not in a very depressive way. So you are such a humorous writer. You have a great humor. I have so much trust in your writing. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you, Sunny. Thanks so much for having me, Sunny. It's been a lot of fun. Great questions and great compliments. I'm gonna play back. Maybe that's the cure to depression, just and great compliments that Sunny gave you.
I mean, I really meant it. It was not. I was not buttering over anything. So.